It's hard to believe it's been another full year of the Manufacturing Mavericks podcast. And as we wrap up 2024, I want to take a moment to thank the fantastic guests that we've had on the show and recap some of our best moments. I mean, we had great shop leaders like Kylan Hastreiter, Mike Payne, Eric Van Orden, Gus Gutierrez, Adam Gordon, Randal Leach, folks who are not just trying to stay ahead of the technology curve, but define it in their respective businesses. And then we had industry leaders and luminaries like Rob Caron and Paul Van Metre, whose stories of starting their companies and the success they've had in manufacturing are just incredible to listen to. And last but not least, how could I forget my great friend, Tony Gunn? And you talk about stories. I mean, the name of the episode is Twisted Roads Make Better Stories. There's nobody who's more entertaining to have, and it was great to flip the microphones on Tony. Enjoy these best moments from 2024. Hope everybody has a great end of the year. I'm honored to introduce today's manufacturing maverick, Rob Caron with Caron Engineering. Welcome to the show, Rob. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Greg. I'm doing great.
It's an honor to have you, Rob. I think you have an incredible story.
I was just fascinated by CNC controls in general, how they worked, how they communicated to the metal part of the machine, and servo systems and PLCs and all the things that go along with the integral part of a CNC machine. It was exciting and looked like fun things to understand more. So I started to dive into it on my own and really understand sort of the exact workings of the inside the CNC control, not just how you program a machine to cut a part, but really what happened behind the scenes from the CNC program to the tool changer to all the functions that go on in the CNC machine. It was just really cool and fascinating stuff. So I started to spend a lot of time on my own, really learning all those pieces. And as I did, I started getting more ideas of how can we make these things better. Some of the technologies like AutoComp, where we automatically feed back data to the control. I started doing that in the mid-'80s, just to show the technology. It was a lot harder back then, but I found ways to do it. And that was probably the first thing I actually did from that aspect, and then motivated me to say there's other areas that must be able to be improved on. So I kept going from there.
What do you see the next 5 to 10 years looking like here for precision manufacturers?
Well, I think the number one piece right now is certainly the automation. Everybody is moving in that direction. And if they're not moving in it, they're thinking about what to do because they know that they're not going to be able to get around that. It's just a necessity. And with that, I also see a lot of companies struggling to move to automation because there's a lot more to it than just saying, let's throw a robot on the side of this machine and we'll be all set. I think the whole infrastructure that's building and being created that way is definitely where everything's going, but it's also presenting challenges to the manufacturing world. And I think there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done from all people that provide technology to help manufacturing companies get into this space in a better and easier way.
So if you could go back in time and you could speak to the young Rob Caron about 3 weeks before he walked up to the door with chains on it, what would you go back in time and what advice would you give him?
I think the most important thing is from even your young days into the industry, you just meet so many smart people that know a lot. And I just think it's important to just glean everything you can from anybody that you think knows what they're talking about. Just be the biggest sponge you can think of to absorb that information. But don't be afraid to ask questions either. And just try to understand as much as possible from as many different people as possible so that your knowledge base is as broad as possible. Also, I think just retain your ethics and how you want to be in life and be honest, be ethical, and you'll always be respected by everybody that you work with.
I am honored to introduce today's manufacturing maverick, Kylan Hastreiter. Welcome to the show, Kylan. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me today, Greg. You're not bringing in technology to make their life harder. At least you shouldn't be, right? If it's done right, it's going to make their life better from some perspective. And so when it's communicated in a way that makes sense to them and they have buy-in, and you ask their opinion, or you let them know that this is what they're looking at, so they have the opportunity to speak up and throw out ideas, you have the buy-in, and eventually that builds, so because we have that, I don't know if you just want to call it repertoire, they expect that change to be positive in some way. With Datanomix, one of its values for us has just been getting more spindle utilization out of our machines, right? Increasing production. Instead of having to buy another machine last year, we looked at the data, said, oh, I just need to upskill somebody to get another person on these machines, increase our output, and then, basically upskill everybody else across the shop. Because the Metres are higher machines and you don't just hop on those machines. You take some of the more experienced people and train them onto those machines. And then it wasn't until a year later that I did finally buy another Metre, because we just looked at the data and said, hey, this is when we actually need to buy another machine, even though our capacity was maxed, right? Because people will come to you and say, hey, we need to do this or that, right? If you're an owner, you've got managers, they'll say, hey, we need to buy another machine. Well, why do we need to buy another machine? Well, our capacity is maxed out. Well, why is our capacity maxed out? They think it's purely machine, right? But, the more data you have, the more you're able to get some additional perspective to be able to look into making the best decision possible. And we've experienced that by having, the data available through Datanomix.
I am honored to introduce today's manufacturing maverick, Mike Payne of Hill Manufacturing. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome, Greg. Thanks for having me. I think the industry in general already acts this way: is don't tell me no, tell me how, right? It's a can-do attitude. Like, yeah, we can do it. It may or may not be the most economical or smartest decision, but we can do anything. And I think that's part of what I love about this industry is people that are veterans of the industry. That's just how they approach life.
The entrepreneurial spirit in manufacturing, definitely one of the things that drove me to the industry as well. I mean, I look at it as a software startup guy. Every part is a startup. You look at it and it's a journey from what's the concept? Can we make it? Should we make it? How do we do it better? If I get 10 right, can I get 100 right? If I get 100 right, can I get 1,000 right? Do I have all the things I need to take the sales of that component to the next level? Can I get more business from that person I just did that component for? I mean, every part has baked into it unlimited upside that is tethered specifically to the creativity and the capability of the people trying to get it done. There's no better thing.
But technology allows me to be competitive. Whether that's software, whether that's the correct tooling, work holding, so forth, or automation, robotics, bar feeders, parts catchers, those types of things. To me, that's all technology. And if I utilize them correctly, they make me better. They make me bigger, stronger, and faster. This is the only industry I've been in that we're all here for each other. The community is amazing. Locally, nationally, regionally, it doesn't matter. I mean, everybody's here to help. I mean, just look at the vast number of people that are in this industry that are doing what you're doing with this podcast or other podcasts, or like Tony Gunn with all he does.
I'm honored to introduce today's manufacturing maverick, Paul Van Metre. Welcome to the show, Paul. How are you doing today?
I am great, Greg, and I'm so honored to be here. Thanks to you so much. I'm looking forward to our talk. The heart and soul of a manufacturing company is the shop floor. You can't make a profit without executing well on the shop floor. And that, and as, have said so many times, because precision manufacturing business is the hardest business in the world, there are a million, not literally, thousands of details that you have to get right for that part to turn out well. Every human-made product, every single thing is either directly machined or is a mold or is made by a machine that was made of machine parts, whether it's agriculture, whether it's aerospace, whether it's electronics or fabrics or food, anything. It all starts with machining. Little did we realize that the machining business is the hardest business in the world. It is the most complicated, the most cash intensive, the most slim margins, with a million things that can go wrong, and everything has to go right to make your quoted margin on a job. And even just learning how to quote was an exercise. You cannot have a strong economy without a strong manufacturing base. And our country lost its way for quite a long time in that regard. And I think it's getting it back slowly. But yeah, those shops are the absolute bedrock of everything this country makes. And because you combine that with it being the hardest business in the world, it's so essential to support them. It's so essential to help them thrive. Your software does the exact same thing. You're helping them maximize their spindle hours and get more throughput. And there's nothing that I can imagine that is more rewarding than helping these heroes of our economy. And that creates jobs and that helps support communities.
I'm honored to introduce today's manufacturing maverick, Eric Van Orden. Welcome to the show, Eric. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here and have this opportunity. I want to say thank you, and very humbling that, you want my opinion. I feel like I'm just a guy. Humbling experience, but excited.
That's great, Eric. I knew that the second I met you, I knew you were a manufacturing maverick.
The guys that we have, they really are like family. There's guys I call here my uncle. That's my Uncle Jim. No relationship, but he's my uncle.
Yeah.
And we have a really good group, and everyone's committed to success. And this is a part where it's like, I'm just a guy. Like, part of my story is my dad. He's a huge influence. I haven't had the opportunity to work in other machine shops, but a lot of other people have. And they all talk to me. They all tell me the same thing, that Steve's the best boss we've ever had. He cares about his employees. And when Paramount succeeds, everyone succeeds. Winston Churchill said, I like for things to happen, and when they don't happen, I like to make them happen. And that goes back to taking ownership of something. And we all want great things to happen, but some of us just sit there and say, oh, it didn't happen this time. And then there's the other group that says, it didn't happen, but I'm going to make it happen. And you take ownership of it, and you find the tool path, you find the tool, you find the technology, you persevere, and are able to go forward. You're stagnant. You've seen it. How many shops are going out of business because they're stagnant?
Oh, yeah. I mean, more than should be, that's for sure.
Definitely. And you have to survive. You have to be on the forefront of that, and you have to participate, and you have to be engaged. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I don't know if I always clocked into the job for the right amount of time.
You and millions of other people.
But you know what Datanomix knows? It knows exactly what the machine did, because it only reads what the machine did, and the machine does what the machine does every single time. You have to figure out how to get new people into manufacturing, because manufacturing is at a crossroads. There's a lot of guys in the industry that are 50, 60, even 70 years old. If no one fills that void, then it's just going to stop, which can't happen. Local cities, it can't happen for states, the country. Like, we need manufacturing. So how do you get people, the newer generation that likes to play video games, likes to spend time online? How do you get them involved? Well, we can say we can get them involved because everyone has access to being able to program. And they see that, and they come in and they see, oh, this is cool. Like, everyone's using a computer, and everything's nice in here. Like, nothing's, some shops are like a dungeon, right? Poor lighting, floors covered in chips.
Definitely.
I'm a NASCAR fan, and it's like Roger Penske keeps one of the cleanest shops. They call it Penske Clean, and he has a high expectation of that. And the first thing we did when we bought the building, we sanded all the floors and painted and sealed them. And when they get scuffed up, we repaint them and reseal them. We painted all the walls. We painted the ceiling. Everything's bright. We have hundreds and hundreds of lights in the facility. Like, it's a nice, clean area to come and work. So that's inviting to the newer generation. They don't want to go work in a dungeon. They don't want to be covered in oil at the end of the day.
I am honored to introduce today's guest on Manufacturing Mavericks. Welcome to the show, Gus. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Greg?
Oh, he's a weirdo. He's leaning on his machine all day. He's got his hand on his machine. Actually, no, he's being a perfectionist.
Correct. But didn't waste time explaining it to anybody unless you actually approached them and asked them, what are you doing, right?
Right. Right. And you started with the assumption that he must know what he's doing. There must be a good reason. What is there that I can learn from that?
Correct. Having that humility to know that, hey, I can learn from anybody and I don't know anything in comparison to these guys. Carrying that same level of humility throughout my career has helped me to learn new things, a lot of new things that I might not have been privileged to learn. I spent some time doing a lot of oddball jobs. I did some roofing. I did some construction. I had a little different things, but in the back of my mind, I always was manufacturing is what I like. I enjoy doing other stuff, and I want to continue to expand every day. I want to learn something new. So I've been curious my entire life. And I explored all these oddball jobs, and manufacturing just kept calling my name. We want to have a place where the culture is better than a lot of other places, right? Not to compare myself, but we want people to want to come to work. In my mind, there's a difference between a good employee and an engaged employee. And I truly believe that culture makes an employee engaged. Because you can have a very good employee, punches in and out, does what he has to do. But a happy, engaged employee is going to do that much more, right? They're going to do the right thing even when you're not around. I always tell my kids, you don't have to dream like I dream, but you should have a dream, right?
Definitely.
This is my dream. This is what I want to do. I'm just giving you options. Here's some potential. If you want to pursue it, that's great. If not, let's go figure out what you want to dream about, and let's help you get there.
What a great piece of advice. And no better way than to have a front row seat to your dream, but also without the pressure of, exactly as you said it, this is my dream. It doesn't have to be yours, but you got to have one. Right. So great dive in on the people aspect there. How about technology, Gus? How do you see technology as part of the culture?
It's important to give people the right equipment, the right tools for success. I can't expect an employee to, but they often surprise me. I can't expect them to make miracles with older equipment. So we've invested in a lot of new equipment. We have also invested in training my core team members in some of the preventative maintenance, helping them understand, let's fix it, or let's repair it, or let's look at it before it's actually an issue. My servicing background allows me to have those conversations with them, allows me to train them in some of that. And now I go out to the floor and the guy will be like, hey, I'm changing the amplifier on the machine, which is great. I believe in sharing everything I know with anybody out there so we all have the same information. And if that's also a cultural thing, right? Being able to share information, nobody's going to take anybody's position away. But the more we all know, essentially, the less we all do.
I am honored to introduce today's manufacturing maverick, Tony Gunn from NTD CNC, episode I've been looking forward to for a really long time. Welcome to the show, Tony. How you doing today?
Living a dream, brother. Something I've been looking forward to for a while as well. Thanks for having me. I got into manufacturing completely on accident. I say this often. I thought for sure I was going to be a pro athlete. Like, I didn't care about school. I was a dummy in high school. I got kicked out of 3 colleges because all I cared about was soccer and some of the other explicitives that might go into college life. But I mean, I was at that level, right? I was the MVP of my team as a freshman. I was the 6th leading scorer in the nation for JUCO as a freshman. My sophomore year in college, I was on the all Big East team or something like that. I mean, my path was paved. And I was even on practice squads for the professional teams before I stopped playing. And manufacturing was an accident. I sat down in front of a machine and I could code with the best of them. I was doing line by line programming, G code, M code. I could almost like watching the Matrix. You could see the formation of a product by looking at the way the code was being written. And I really enjoyed just making things. You know, that day-to-day activity of hauling a pipe into a machine, plowing through it. Can I beat my old time from yesterday, my new time? Or when I'm making something that people really just, when it's completed, when that kitchen is completed, or that bathroom, or that entertainment center, and they just have all the gratitude in the world, sometimes even tears of gratitude, because that was exactly what they had dreamt of for their lifelong house, for their family.
I am pleased to introduce a new friend of mine. I've just been getting to know Adam Gordon with Tendon Manufacturing. Welcome to the program, Adam.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's good to be here. The cool things we do for employee buy-in is we have these fix-it forms, we call them. And it's really just a process improvement thing that we want employees to look for ways to improve their day, improve, our operations. And you'll come to find that the employees that fill out the most fix-it forms are the ones that kind of climb the ladder quicker because they're seeing things that we're not, and they're just advancing us so much more than we could imagine. And along with that, we do quarterly bonuses. That's part of our profit sharing. So whatever employee wages are, they factor in this last year, it's factored to be an additional $3.25 an hour. It's one of those things that, your biggest asset is your group of people. And the Ohio State legend said it best, Woody Hayes, you win with people. So that's kind of what we strive for here.
So it sounds like you're getting stuff out of your ERP. You figured out, hey, that's not enough. So you see some gap. What's more in that gap, and what has you more interested in data acquisition?
We have this utilization number that we use, and it definitely helps dictate where we're going wrong and how we're quoting and different things like that. One of our issues, especially with the laser, is you have employees or your laser operators leaving to get material, whether it be the building next door or unracking it. So we're looking into that, and we're also considering down the road getting a feeder system for at least the Mitsubishi laser that will do some of the departing, because that is kind of our mission, the whole automate to accommodate sort of thing that keeps the laser operator doing their thing, and then it also just increases production. So different things like that. So it
Sure.
So it really does just come down on just keeping our hands on parts.
We are joined by a great friend of mine, Randal Leach from Ricaurte Precision. Great to have you on, Randal. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for the intro, and likewise, totally appreciate you guys. The industry needs to catch up to all this technology because it's going forward, and it's made life a lot easier and us capable to do what we're doing with our growth and being aggressive and not trying to slow down or be slowed down by the lack of.
For sure. And I think you just hit on one of the hottest topics right now, right? We can say we just came back from IMTS a couple weeks ago, and one of the big concerns that I think is finally really being felt across the industry is, what the hell does it mean to be CMMC 2.0 compliant, and all the different things there are to think about to get there.
Yeah, I think, again, we talked about it personally, you and I and your team a lot while we were there. It's a hot topic for Ricaurte. Obviously, we want to be prepared when this thing hits and not be on the back foot. It is nice that it's being taken seriously. I think, again, other people could take it more seriously. And I say that just because the ball is in our court with it right now, in terms of we're not being audited just yet. And it has been pushed back a few times and whatever else, but that gives us a little bit of time because we're ready for it. We're taking it deadly serious, but we're in that early age of we're allowed to make a slight mistake and then cause and corrective action. How do we fix that? Okay, now that gap's bridged and we know we're learning from it, we don't have to just rely on this is what we think. Right. So we can develop this thing as we go and then be ready for the large primes that are going to be requiring this. Because if you're not taking this seriously and looking forward, it's death.
Right. I mean, you're not going to be able to do business. It doesn't get more life or death than that.
Exactly. I mean, I can't imagine knowing that this exists, not doing anything about it.
Thank you for listening to Manufacturing Mavericks. If you'd like to learn more, listen to past episodes, or nominate a future Maverick to be on our show, visit mfgmavericks.com. And don't forget to subscribe to and rate this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast app.